Welcome back, everyone. We're convening. We're going to move to agenda item 2C, which is a discussion regarding. Oh, sorry about that. Agenda item 2C. There I am. Discussion regarding allegations of harassment of families by the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department patrol staff. This is an item that has come to our attention at several meetings. Families have reported to us that they feel that they have been harassed and that they feel intimidated. And again, it's an issue that we really have to look into seriously. So I want to turn it the agenda over to our executive director, Mr. Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you previously indicated, both publicly and privately, staff has been apprised of several issues that have occurred out in the community. And these issues generally occur, according to the folks that we've spoken with, after there's been a deputy-involved shooting or some significant action by the Sheriff's Department in a particular neighborhood. We've heard both publicly here at our meetings as well as privately, where we've been contacted individually by family members and community members. These contacts have been occurring over the past year or so, where we've heard of this. The contacts generally take on this form, that after there's some significant action by the Sheriff's Department, and in one instance it was another police agency, but we're speaking here of the Sheriff's Department, that there is a heightened level of presence of sheriff's deputies within a particular neighborhood. And sometimes this presence, according to the folks that we've heard from, may take the form of, for example, driving by very slowly in front of a house where the family of the deceased person may be gathered in terms of a tribute for that deceased person, and the deputy who was in the car staring menacingly toward the persons who are gathered at the house. On other occasions, we have been informed that the families have been stopped by sheriff's deputies for what they believe is an unconstitutional or illegal reason. And thirdly, we have heard allegations where the families have been followed through large parts of Los Angeles by sheriff's deputies. And again, all these folks who have reported this information are people who are family members or close relatives or members of the community where there has been a significant action by the Sheriff's Department. So we bring this as the staff to the commission because we've discussed this once before, but we wanted to more formalize this, and so we brought this in the form of a motion to do two things. One, to ask the Office of Inspector General to officially initiate a formal investigation and assessment as to whether the families who are in this LASD patrol areas are being harassed following the fatal use of force, and to report back to the Commission in writing within 60 days. And secondly, to request that the Sheriff's Department initiate a formal investigation of alleged harassment occurring at the East Los Angeles and Century Sheriff Stations associated with the families of those who died as a result of deputy-involved shootings, and report back to the Commission, once again in writing within 60 days. We're aware that there is a formal process for family members of people in the community who believe that they have been the victim of some unlawful actions by the Sheriff's Department to report this information. However, it is not unusual for communities who have been traumatized by such actions by the Sheriff's Department to simply not want to go to the Sheriff's Department to file a complaint, because it just begins to increase the level of trauma or reminds them of the trauma that they've gone through. Either that, or they are of the belief that nothing is going to happen. So again, we bring this to you to better formalize this, and we're asking these requests of the Office of Inspector General and from the Sheriff's Department.
So let's open this up for discussion.
Yes.
I'm looking at the resolution, and I'm just trying to understand. Oh, it's a motion, excuse me. Thank you. I stand corrected by Commissioner Rubin. That the motion, so we have two categories, one, and I'm trying to distinguish the two. It looks like, and we've got 1 and 2 under category 1, and then 1 and 2 under category 2 of the motion. And one of the category 2 seems to be a subset of category 1, but is there a difference between, I might be missing the difference here. Could you just explain that to me? If the one's a subset, then it should go, I'm not sure whether it goes first or second.
Procedurally, the difference is, if you'll note, it says after the precatory language, as such, the commission directs the OIG. We have that authority to direct the OIG to take certain actions on behalf and investigations on behalf of the COC. We don't have that authority over the Sheriff's Department, so as you read, it's a request to the Sheriff's Department that they take these actions.
I see. Thank you for that clarification.
And since we're on the subject
General?
of clarifications, the use of the term investigation is inappropriate. Under our ordinance, the term is defined, and investigations are when we target individuals for disciplinary action or criminal prosecution. So I would request that if the motion is passed, that it use, with respect to the Office of Inspector General, the term inquiry. I'm happy to look into and within 60 days can tell you something about this practice on the part of the Sheriff's Department and propose ways in which they could avoid this problem. It's been discussed by the board in open session in the past, and I think it's appropriate. We're aware of complaints on the issue. But as to an investigation, that would be asking for us to investigate particular individual deputies, and our ordinance does not allow us to do it. It wouldn't be appropriate in this situation, and I don't think it's what the commission is really thinking of.
I would say that the import of the motion generally is not to investigate individual deputies, but to see if there's a pattern of practice.
And if you pass it as it's written, I will interpret investigation to mean inquiry, and I'll do exactly that. But I prefer that it use the term inquiry so that it's consistent with our statutes.
Yeah.
Excuse me, not statutes, ordinances.
In that regard, based on the clarification from the Inspector General, I would move that under the first subset, initiate a formal inquiry, that language appears rather than an investigation. And I think that should solve the Inspector General's concern and also get us the information we need. So I move to amend the motion.
Second?
Everyone in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Motion amended. Any further discussion?
Since there's deafening silence in the room, let me just say that I think it's important to understand that what we're looking at are allegations, and the really important part of this, I think, for us is to determine what the facts are with respect to the allegations that there's been harassment. And that's what this motion is going to do, I think, at least set in motion. We're at least we're going to get the IG to conduct an inquiry, and I support that, and requesting the Sheriff's Department to do formal investigation itself, internal investigation. And I'm very comfortable getting the facts, and then we'll make some determinations as to how that plays out after we've gotten an objective investigative report, or excuse me, report of inquiry from the IG. So I'm supportive of the motion, but I just want to make that point.
Okay. Any other commentary?
I have a comment, ma'am.
Yes.
So this is obviously a very important topic to us, and we're always striving to improve our public trust. What you're asking, though, is very broad. You're saying to do an investigation of harassment, which harassment can mean a lot of things, and on who. We would tell you and start with by saying that it is not acceptable for any of our personnel to harass anybody, period, on any level. Our sheriff is committed to due process and justice and transparency, and if anyone was engaged in misconduct, we would want to know about it and we would want to hold them accountable. The complaint process is in place because it gives us a start point to look into something, and it's totally understandable that these families may not want to come forward and talk to us. But if we can have the initial information and be trusted with that, we would be more than happy to look into it. Our complaint process is completely transparent in the regards of that it's permanent record. We acknowledge when we receive the complaint, and we give the complainant a disposition at the end of it, and that is available for review by our oversight bodies should you have a question as to the actions in that. So it's not that we don't want to look into this, we absolutely do, but a start point would be good, because when you give us a station and the large area that the station polices and you say families, it's so broad that an investigation is more scope than that. That would be a little bit different than actually asking for an investigation. So we would, with all respect, ask any families who think that they've been harassed in any manner to please notify us. And there's different ways that can be done. If they don't want to give the information directly to us, they can give it to this commission. They can give it to the OIG. They can call it in on our 1-800 number. But if it would point us in the right direction. It's kind of like saying investigate crime. Where do you start with that? What crime, where at, who's it involved? So I would just like to point that out, that we're completely partnering with you guys. We want to do this. It's important to the sheriff. It's important for us to work with the OIG, but I would just like you to take that into consideration, asking you where we would start.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. I think you articulated it really well. And what we're hoping for is that because we're shining a light on this, that family members who have experienced these things will feel more trusting and a little bit, and continue to be brave and come forward and speak to make your complaints with as much clarifying information that you have, and to give that into these different ways, anonymous phone calls directly to the sheriff, and now we have the OIG involved. So there are several avenues, and I think that is the point of what we're trying to do here, because we do understand that this is an issue of public trust, and we want to support that, and we want to support the families to come forward, and because it does take courage to speak truth to power, and so that is the whole spirit of this motion. And I'm hoping that we will be able to, as Commissioner Bonner pointed out, these are allegations. If there's more data and people can be interviewed with specificity, and then action can be taken, and I think then we'll be getting somewhere. Any other commentary?
Yes, ma'am. I just say we would love to partner with this issue with you.
Excellent.
And as the Assistant Sheriff of Patrol, I take this very seriously. It's not acceptable if the families feel they're being harassed. We'll look into any allegations that they bring forward to us, and we will handle it within our procedures, and you can review that if you'd like.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we'll open it up now for public comment.
If I could just...
Oh, yes, sorry.
Madam
Hold on a
Chair,
sec.
I just want to say that, the letter that's been submitted to us is very specific about what the allegations are with respect to Jaylene. And so I think that there's a basis here for, should the sheriff be so inclined, and we hope he would be, to investigate these allegations, because they are quite specific. You read it, they cover about 2.5 pages.
Oh, sir, I'm at a disadvantage because I have not seen the letter. But if we take that letter, this would be how we would receive a complaint. We will log this as a complaint, and then we will investigate it as a complaint. So that kind of solves that issue then.
Thank you.
Yeah, just for the public, what we're looking at, and you're not looking at, is a letter to the Board of Supervisors, to District Attorney Jackie Lacey, to us here at the Civilian Oversight, and also to Inspector General Max Huntsman, regarding these issues of allegations of retaliation and harassment of grieving families. And the letter is from, it does go into detail, and there are names, and it cites a lot of good information, and it's from Black Lives Matter LA, ACLU Southern California, and the Centro Community Service Organization. So now that you have this, Inspector General has this, let's open it up for Oh,
One
I'm
question.
sorry.
There's also a reference to Anthony A.J. Weber's family, Ryan Twyman, and Anthony Vargas.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, Chair, if we could make this available as an attachment on the website so that it could be available to members of the public as well. Thank you.
See no problem with that. Any other commission question or commentary?
I would just respond to the commissioner and say, I see that, and this is enough information for us to do a complaint and inquiry.
Excellent, excellent. I like when we get things done and we start moving in the right direction. Let's turn to public comment.
Rigi Bunch, followed by Pastor Q Jean-Marie, followed by Stephanie Luna.
I humbly request to be at the end of the pile so the families can go, so the families can go ahead and speak. I request to be at the end of the pile.
You want to go first?
No, wait, I'm sorry, you're asking something else?
Let the families go first.
Oh, we'd like the families to go first? Sure, sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
That should have to be requested. Stephanie wants to go first.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Luna. I am Anthony Daniel Vargas' aunt. Most of you guys are familiar with my nephew. He was shot and killed August 12, 2018. He was shot 13 times, 11 times in his back, 2 times in his head by 2 of your officers. You know, the harassment is real. It's not something that you just hear on the news, something you see on TV. It's a real thing. My family's been harassed. My sisters have been pulled over. My brother's been pulled over, held out of his car for 2 hours while deputies are sitting in their car eating donuts, you know, eating food. My brother's sitting on the sidewalk, you know, 2 hours late to work. We've been harassed as far as them following us. You know, they pass in front of our driveway, slow down. We live a couple of blocks away from that sheriff's department, from the East LA Sheriff's Department. You know, you guys are talking a lot about it's not, you need evidence, you need proof. The problem is when we're followed in our vehicles, you know, we can't get our phone and push record because that's reason for you guys to pull us over. You know, and there's the fear right there. Automatically, there gives you guys a reason to pull us over and harass us even more. You know, when you guys slow down in front of our driveway, you know, we can't go up to the car and, oh, hey, what do you want? You know, because there it is right there. There's us engaging with you in that. You know, so asking for us to have evidence and have concrete this and that, like it's far beyond that. Our words should be enough, and we've went through enough trauma to have you guys following us, you know, and harassing us. We have kids that, you know, all of my nephews and nieces, they're fluent in their rights and what, you know, when an officer does approach them, what they can and can't do, they don't reach in their pockets. You know, if they're being followed by a cop, they don't reach in their pocket to pull out their phone. Why? Because you guys assume it's a weapon. Anything that gets pulled out, you guys assume it's a weapon. The intimidation and harassment is real. You'll hear it from multiple families, and it needs to be stopped. Thank you.
Thank you.
Valerie Vargas, followed by Michael Twyman, followed by Danelle Johnson.
Hi, I'm Valerie Vargas. I'm Stephanie Luna's sister, and Anthony Vargas was my nephew, who was also killed by the East Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. And I'm that sister that she was talking about who was, well, I'm one of the sisters, but I got pulled over. I got followed from my mom's house in East LA by a black unmarked vehicle with no license plate, tinted windows, no back license plates, onto the 710. And I live in East Compton, and they followed me all the way to off of East Compton. And the whole time I wanted to push my phone for record, because I keep telling myself, get a dash cam, but just life happens. And I was so paranoid when they got off of that when they got off of the Rosecrans exit that I went about 2 miles down to the Walmart on Long Beach Boulevard. I pulled in there because I thought that's the one place where there would be full of cameras in case something had happened, because the way the vehicle was hostily following me from my mom's house onto the freeway. Yeah, I got really scared. I got off my car, I had my phone on, and when I got off the car just sped off. I didn't see no license plate. There was no, like, unit number on the side of it. I've mentioned it to some of the members here before. I think we had a meeting once before, but yeah, I don't know what else to do other than, I mean, I don't know what I'm supposed to do when I get followed. I can't just have my phone on all the time. So, you know, you want me to come to your station, but your station's the one following me. I don't even know if it's you guys. I'm assuming it's you guys because you guys are always passing in front of our house. That's it.
Thank you.
Michael Twyman, followed by Donnell Johnson, followed by Julie Lee Diaz Martinez.
Good morning. I'm Ryan Twyman's uncle. When he say public trust, I don't trust the police at all. Because when I look at the video when my nephew got killed, don't nobody open nobody's door and just stick their hand in there. And at my nephew's funeral, police came by like 4 or 5 cars deep and making faces at the people at the funeral. And my nieces have got stopped leaving the house and put in the backseat of the car. I mean, we grieve over our family just like y'all grieve over y'all officers. We deserve a chance to be around our family, and I don't think, you know, everybody there is doing nothing wrong. Some things get took out of order, but when it's all said and done, we want respect like y'all do. I mean, I'm not gonna call the police and ask you to do nothing when I see you doing something wrong. The sheriff, when y'all stop us, y'all out the car in a half a second. We in the back seat of the other session. I don't think that's cool. If you stop me for a tail light while I'm in the back seat of a car. I mean, I just want the proper respect. If I do something wrong, hey, I'm accountable for it. I'm not gonna cuss you out, do none of that. I did something wrong. All I'm just asking for is proper respect for my family as you want for your officers.
Thank you.
Donnell Johnson, followed by Julie Diaz Martinez, followed by Leah Garcia.
Hi, my name is Davia. I'm the girlfriend of Ryan Twyman. Like Uncle Mike said, at the day of Ryan's funeral, it was plenty of police that were around when we were gathering before we go to the funeral. They came around at the funeral, and even at the cemetery, the police, the sheriff's department was there. Why the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department was way at Rose Hill Cemetery, I do not know. But they were there. After the fact of the funeral, like Uncle Mike said, they will pull us over. The boy that was in the car with Ryan at the time of his murder, they'll pull him over. They'll drive by the house. Some of them flick us off. The Compton sheriff will drive by the house, and they'll be like, they'll drive by and we'll ask them, what are you looking at? Like, what do you want? Like, what are you doing? Like, we'll ask them, and they'll be like, don't be mad at us. It wasn't us. It was Los Angeles Sheriff, not Compton. I have videos on my phone of them pulling over Ryan's friend that was in the car with him. Ryan's friend was asking them a number of times, what's your badge number? What's your badge number? I have photos of different officers who repeatedly do it that is a part of the Los Angeles Sheriff Department. I don't know their name. I don't know their badge number. We just randomly get pictures, which like everyone said, we can't just pull something out. Like we can't do anything too fast because for one, we already nervous. We already know what y'all just did to somebody in our family. So of course we already on guard, like what y'all want, but we're mad. So of course we talking mess, but it's like, what is it? They tear apart the car, breaking open and stuff to try to find who knows what, but they tear everything apart and they're rude. Like they'll laugh, they'll say, can I have a button? His mom, like she'll be crying because they'll just drive by. The auntie, she'll just cry because they're driving by and they'll just keep doing it. And it's like torture for you to keep driving by us and laughing or smirking or flicking us off and all that every single chance y'all get. They know we're all from our community is so small. Like, you know, all of us know each other. Y'all could see, like, we're a serious community, so all the sheriff around know where we hang out at, and they keep constantly doing it. And if y'all want the pictures or the videos, I have no problem with giving it to y'all.
Thank you so much.
I only have 2 minutes. I'm going to go very quickly. Within 24 hours of my grandson's killing, the community gathered together, including family, friends, neighbors, co-workers, staff of elected local members of the community, and local clergy members. LA County Sheriff appeared in the form of a word I can best describe, a slow-moving caravan of vehicles. There were approximately 6 to 7 vehicles filled with Sheriff Department. Unfortunately, the lead car slowed very down, rolled her window down. The deputy projected her face forward with a huge smile. She mockingly laughed. She waved with a grin. The grin was from ear to ear. Other cars soon followed in what we call caravan. The best manner to describe such behavior is mocking, laughing, grinning. I believe from their behavior that these actions were meant to mock the recent tragedy. Pastors were clearly present there by their clothing. The community was holding hands and praying. Along with flowers, it was very clear why people were there. If the sheriff department was concerned in any way possible, the protocol would have had an officer or lieutenant to walk outside and ask questions. If there was a concern, they could have simply talked or asked about it. Instead, this caravan wasted county dollars, wasting time with immature, extremely unprofessional behavior. The message was clear. And the family continues to receive this type of harassment. I only have 15 seconds. A second form of harassment is my granddaughter was arrested at the same exact site for a petty misdemeanor. We had to stay in the station the entire night because the county budget, which is in the millions, they claim that they did not have any sheriff on staff who was qualified to take fingerprints. So they kept somebody who was held with a misdemeanor overnight. Wrap your brain around the amount of money a sheriff department has, and they claim they had no qualified person in that station, which was filled with deputies, to take a set of fingerprints. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Leah Garcia, followed by Jaylene Rea, followed by Paula Miner.
I'm Leah Garcia, Paul Rea's mom. The harassment is really real. The East LA sheriffs, I'm scared for. I'm scared of. My family's scared. They pass by my mom's house. They pass by his services. They taunt us mostly every day. And we don't know where to turn. How can we turn to the sheriffs if they're the ones that are doing it? We did go to the sheriff's station one time for harassment, and we got a letter that it was justifiable what they were doing. And that was laughing and taunting us. They act like we did something wrong when we didn't. They're the ones that did it. Still, when they come to his memorial site, I'm never rude with them. I always cooperate, but it's like they're trying to break me, trying to want to get a reaction out of me. I'm just tired of it. My family's tired of it. And I just want to stop. I'm afraid for my other kids. I don't know what they could do to us. I don't know what they could do to all these families. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jaylene Rea, followed by Paula Miner, followed by Shayla.
My name is Jaylene Rea. I'm the sister of Paul Rea, who was killed by the East LA sheriffs on June 27th. Like my mom said, since then, we've been harassed from the very first day, from the very first hour that everything happened. They pass by slowly laughing, giving us uncomfortable looks. They follow us. They just simply intimidate us. As bad as we didn't want to go to the station, we did. We went to go file a harassment claim, and we did get a letter back saying it was probable cause that they have done. We went to the watch commander, gave him videos, showed him pictures, gave him names of sheriffs. It He didn't do anything. What they did was justifiable, and that most likely, like he said, that they were on a call. I know damn sure they were not on no calls when they're passing by, because if you're on a call, you're not going to be driving by slowly past my brother's memorial laughing at us if you have a call. It's BS. I feel like they lied to us. We have nowhere to go. We have nobody to reach out to. We already reached out, and the sheriffs are not going to go against the sheriffs. They never will. So I don't know if we just look dumb to them. We just look like idiots. Like they know we're not going to get anything out of this. They know. So what are we fighting for? Like, what are we doing? Like, we say what's going on, but they're not going to do anything. They're not. They never will. And we need somebody who is going to stick up for us, who is going to help us, because it's not right. Till this day, we get followed, we get harassed. Like my grandma said, I was arrested, and in the cop car, they did not want to tell me where I was going. They just said it was none of my business. We'll see when we get there. They were driving through the streets of East LA, hitting all the red lights, hitting stop signs, everything. And in my head, I was already going crazy. I know they killed my brother, and I was just thinking what they were going to do to me next. And I did not need to feel that way. They did not tell me where I was going. So we need help, and somebody needs to help us, and we need justice for my brother. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Paula Minor, followed by Shayla, followed by Pastor Q Jean-Marie.
I'm Paula Minor, part of Black Lives Matter, and we're a party to the letter. We've been working with these families since June of this year. The harassment of the Twyman family began in June, almost immediately after his murder. The harassment of these families continues. I know you guys see them as allegations. You can hear from the families that these are facts. The thing that really bothers me is that these are very subtle actions of the sheriffs. You know, making eyes, driving by, laughing at people, are often not things that generally are considered crimes. But you know they are harassment. You know, this is just unbelievable, especially with grieving families. And I just can't understand why the number of sheriffs from Willowbrook, Compton to East LA, how they all have gotten into some kind of conspiracy to harass the families of individuals who've been murdered by the sheriff. There is something going on, and we already know that you have a lot of internal conspiracies, especially with the so-called gang allegations. But I do want to ask the commission not to consider these as allegations only, to be very serious about it. Even if they are subtle, they're a concentrated effort. And if there's any way, you would ask that they at least stop until the investigation is completed. I think that would help. I think you need to talk to the various commanders. Somebody needs to be accountable. People don't do these things on their job unless they think they can get away with it. Nobody does things at work if they think they're not going to be held accountable. So it's very serious, and I appreciate the fact that this commission wants to do an investigation, but I think something needs to be done immediately.
Thank you.
Shayla, followed by Pastor Q Jean-Marie, followed by Reggie Bunch.
The fact that we even have to talk about this is disgusting. As it was already stated, most of this harassment is a result of families advocating for their family or loved ones as they fight for justice after LASD murdered their loved one. It is continued abuse. This is also in addition to the assassination of the character of their loved ones that they also have to deal with. All in an effort for you guys to create a narrative to excuse the murder of their loved one. It is continued trauma that these grieving families do not need. I support the inquiry. However, I want to point out that you are not shining a light on this. The families are. The community is. You don't get the credit for this, especially when you started this. I have limited faith in this inquiry. It is not a neutral third party that will be investigating. I do not trust the idea of the police policing themselves. It's bogus. Nor do I trust anyone connected to them. Most of us don't. That's why it's not reported to you. I want to point out the audacity of some of the comments made by those who sit in front of me. You do not get to minimize or shed doubt on the valid experiences of families being harassed by pointing out that they are quote-unquote allegations. You talk about community trust. There is no trust with invalidation. There is no trust with murder. There is no trust with the lack of accountability. Let's acknowledge the absurdity of the fact that an organizer had to call on you to do what you should have done, which is prioritize the families. You didn't even immediately say, let's start with the families. That shouldn't have to be said to you. You give us every reason not to trust any of you. All of this has to stop immediately, not when the investigation is over, now. This is when accountability starts.
Thank you.
Bunch. Pastor Q. Jean-Marie, followed by Reggie Bunch.
Good morning, Commissioners. History has a lot to teach us regarding the issues we're facing today and how to resolve them if we will listen. After Ryan Twyman was killed by the sheriff deputies, the COC, in collaboration with community members, came to hear from the families. I want to thank you for doing that. However, shortly after the gathering, family members contacted us expressing that sheriff deputies stopped them on the way home. And recently, Paul Reyes' family spoke of the intimidation. Is this how the sheriff department builds trust? Listen, on February 4th, 1793, while Harriet Tubman was the conductor of the Underground Railroad, the Fugitive Slave Act was passed by the House of Representatives. This gave rise to citizens, militias, and proclaimed slave patrols, who later became law enforcement. So when law enforcement intimidate and brutalize black people, the weight of traumatic history comes back. Our people are not going to go to the sheriff department to make any complaint. That's why they're here. And I don't recommend that they do it as a pastor in the community. It's too much trauma. We're going to continue to repeatedly traumatize them. Therefore, we need to turn heaven and hell over to do an investigation of this. And if we don't get the investigation here, we'll get it somewhere else. I don't recommend it being done through the sheriff department. We're here, and if this board is not good enough to do it, and if this board is not going to do it, we'll go somewhere else.
Thank you.
Reggie Bunch.
I first want to give a shout out to the family who have come and definitely poured their hearts out and made, I'm sure many of our hearts burn. And I want to give a shout out to, I have Cal State, I teach at Cal State LA. The students are here. Y'all just want to raise your hand. All right, so let you know there's college students that are in the place today. I don't even have like an intellectual understanding of what the sheriffs are doing to this family. Because you would think that sheriffs would abide by certain decorum or policies, or be scared because of certain rules, like, if you hurt someone will come and arrest you, or someone will come and, give you a disciplinary action. The sheriff's department is running amok. They're allowed to do whatever they want to do. And that's the scariness of this situation. Because they know the COC does not have disciplinary power. They know the Board of Supervisors, all they have to do is take them to court, back and forth to court. They currently have the Inspector General under criminal investigation. That's a hard question to ask. What do you do? I think we need to move swiftly and hold these sheriffs even to more account. Thank you.
Thank you. Was that the last speaker? Okay, we have a motion, and we have a second, correct? So did we move yet?
I don't know, I don't know that we have.
Okay, we don't have the
a
motion.
First or a second.
Okay.
At this point. So I move that we adopt the motion as amended.
I'll second.
I third.
Everyone in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Sheriff Gross, we look forward to hearing back from you in terms of, obviously you heard a lot today and you have a letter. So there is some really good information out there. And I want to say to everyone, I know the term allegation can be irritating. Allegation doesn't mean that something's not true. It doesn't mean that it is true, and it doesn't mean that it's not taken seriously. Allegations are very serious. It doesn't mean there's been a definitive, decision about it. So I just want to clear, these allegations are serious. They're being taken very seriously.
Yeah, but these are facts coming from the family. You're lessening that by saying these are allegations.
I was just trying to explain the word allegation, okay? Because we do have, there are processes. Okay, thank you.
There are connotations that come with it that you need to acknowledge.
Okay.
And listen to the family
That's
what
what-
they're saying. You're still discounting them right
No,
now.
if you heard me,
Discounting them.
can I say something? May I? I was just trying to say that the allegations, which is a term that I just acknowledged, is sensitive and provocative. Okay, you know what? You don't want to hear from me, that's okay. I understand. Let's move on. Let's go to item agenda number 3, the Executive Director's report. Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few updates. I wanted to thank the staff and members of the commission and members of the community who attended our second annual community policing conference that we had this past weekend. It was attended by just under 200 people. I thought we had some really good discussions, and we certainly want to continue the level of engagement that we had this past weekend with the community as we move forward. So thank you to the staff who worked awfully hard to put this program together, and those of you who attended. We just wanted to say thank you for that. I wanted to give an update on our meeting location, dates, and time. There's been an absolute concerted effort by the staff to get our meetings off of Tuesdays, so that we're not meeting on the same day as the Board of Supervisors and the LA Police Commission and the LA City Council, onto a Thursday meeting date. We've been scouting multiple locations. We are this close to finding a good location for us to meet, and we'll be able to move those meetings into Thursdays. We'll give more information to you and to the community, make sure everyone has enough notice as to the date and location of our meeting in the upcoming weeks. But it's been a gallant effort by the staff to try and find that location, and we're moving forward with that. At our last meeting, the commission passed a resolution asking that the that the Sheriff's Department provide a Brady list to the District Attorney's Office. I wanted to let the commission know that I did receive a response to our resolution on November 5th of this year, essentially stating that the Sheriff's Department is currently seeking a legal opinion from County Council, and that they will come back to us as soon as they have that information to us. So at the very least, they did acknowledge the receipt of that resolution, and still we're waiting to see what their ultimate actions will or will not be as it pertains to that resolution. And so with that concludes my report.
Mr. Williams, could we have a copy of that letter?
Sure.
Thank you.
And let's turn to the Inspector General Max Huntsman for his report on any activities of the OIG.
aside from any questions you might have, I just wanted to brief you on something that was said by a member of the public at our last meeting about the nature of town halls the Sheriff's Department was conducting. And the concern was about requiring ID for people coming to those town halls, that they could only live in a very specified small area around the town hall. I've had my staff now start attending some of those. That's a little bit difficult in that the Sheriff's Department does not always let anybody know when and where they will be until the last moment. And we have asked them to include us on their mailing list, and so far that hasn't happened, but we're optimistic that it will happen. I did have somebody at the West Hollywood meeting. It was an unusual town hall, I will say. The number of law enforcement people outnumbered the number of audience members who were present, including 20 armed deputies standing around the perimeter of the room. The sheriff spoke, and it's my understanding that in no time was there a call for people to make comments or ask questions, and nobody did so. And that was a little odd. It does appear, although I don't know for sure, and we're going to attend more to kind of get a sense of this, that people may have been given the opportunity to write down questions on cards. And it does appear that some questions were conveyed to the sheriff and other people speaking by somebody who had access to such cards. But the impression given was that they were edited. And of course, this is a sensitive issue. I've talked a little bit to county council, but because it's not something that's currently a legal issue before us, we haven't gotten dug into it completely. The First Amendment allows you to have a public forum. Our rules here are different because of the Brown Act, but the First Amendment simply, the primary thing it says is you can't discriminate based on the content of speech. So the way in which those cards are being used, I think at least creates a danger that there might be an editing based upon the content of speech. And certainly the meeting that we attended in West Hollywood suggested that there wasn't an opportunity for people to speak directly, and the strong presence of law enforcement might have had a chilling effect. As to the question of whether or not residence appears to be a requirement, we've seen a couple of flyers that were sent out, and they were very specific about saying that they were welcoming people from the immediate area, including at times listing the area. We understand there may have been a draft or an early version of a flyer that actually said you had to be from that area, but I have yet to be able to confirm that IDs have been checked. Certainly I'm not aware of that happening at the one we went to subsequently, because the information we got was about the Altadena town hall, which occurred some time ago. There was one in Temple City recently that we were not able to attend because we didn't know about it until the last minute, but we'll try to monitor them as best we can. It's our understanding that the sheriff has made an effort to go out to all the station areas, and that he has a few more to do, and then he will have completed that. Whether or not he will continue town halls, where in the earlier days they seemed to be close in time to meetings that this body was setting up. I don't know if that's going to continue or if it's going to end when he's done all the stations, but we will attempt to monitor them more closely than we have in the past. Given initially I didn't want to have OIG going to those because I wanted the sheriff to have the space to have his own forum, but given the nature of what we've heard about them and what we've learned about how they seem to be conducted, I think it is appropriate for us to monitor them, and we will do that.
All right, thank you. Any questions for the Inspector General?
I have one question, not germane to the sheriff's town hall meetings, but I'd like to ask Inspector General Huntsman, is the Sheriff's Department still honoring the memorandum of understanding between the OIG and the department regarding the IG's access to records of the department, including, for example, disciplinary actions?
The memorandum of understanding has not been honored since the sheriff first took office. However, our ordinance, in some areas, it is still being honored, and we are getting information of a limited sort. As to police officer personnel records and disciplinary actions, we're now required to go down and look at terminals while monitored. So there's a kind of an access. But on the issue, say, of hiring, where the Sheriff's Department sent a letter to the board saying that they wanted a second opinion about whether or not we could look at hiring records, We recently had a meeting with the person in charge who did indeed redact out information, didn't allow us to look at them unredacted, and we learned that there don't seem to be any medical records there, only letters from doctors saying that people are fit to be peace officers, and yet they have apparently claimed that we can't look at them because of a HIPAA rule. So there's still a problem with access as to important issues, but on mundane issues we are getting some access. And as I mentioned about the homicide detectives who cooperate in the Family Assistance Program, the lower down the chain of command you get, the more cooperation we get.
Let me ask this. Have you directly asked Sheriff Villanueva to essentially re-execute the memorandum of understanding that you had theretofore had with the Sheriff's Department?
On June 17th, after they shut off our computer access, I went to personally ask the sheriff to turn it back on, and instead of doing that, he threatened me with, quote, consequences if I put out the Magdalene report, which I took to be a violation of the penal code.
The long and short of it is he is not abiding by the memorandum of understanding that the IG previously had. He is in some ways, I guess you're saying, but essentially the understanding that's in the memorandum has not been adopted by Sheriff Villanueva. Or am I misstating that? Disabuse me if I am.
You're not misstating it. However, I balk at the use of the memorandum term, because the memorandum was a document entered into with Jim McDonald many years ago that allowed him to partially comply with Government Code 25303 and the OIG ordinance. And it was a stepping stone towards full compliance, which he later adopted. It had, I don't think has any application anymore, and certainly the sheriff abrogated it in December when I contacted him by letter and asked him to comply with certain of its notice requirements, and he did not even respond. So I don't think it's the memorandum that's an issue, but as to compliance with the law, I do believe there is a great deal of information that the Sheriff Department continues to give us, and that is a positive. It is the mundane information, and most often comes from lower-level people, and there are a constant refusal to provide us information that is required under our ordinance and would have been required under the MOA when it was in place.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the OIG? Okay, thank you. Now we'll turn to the Sheriff's Department update, and Under Sheriff Murakami is not here today. Do you have a report for us, Sheriff Gross?
So I'll start with the town hall meetings to give you an idea of what those are, since I actually go to them. The sheriff has gone out of his way to visit various communities. He's done 23 town hall meetings, and they vary in size depending on which community we go to. The format for the town hall meetings is basically three-pronged. The first thing he does is meets with the local officials that either are in charge of that city and or the county areas, and makes himself available to them to answer questions and address their concerns. The next part of it is an open forum session with the community. And the community is allowed to come in and write down their comments on cards, and then he reads them off the cards with it actually had changed, but now the way it is the captain of the station is reading them from the card to the sheriff, and the sheriff answers that. And yes, there is additional dialogue sometimes between the sheriff and the crowd when there needs to be clarification or if there's additional questions. Excuse me. So the sheriff is making himself accessible to his community and taking on any questions without any scripted material, and he handles pretty much anything that anybody's willing to ask him. Mr. Huntsman is right that there was an intent to have the town hall meetings everywhere within the county so that we would go around and address the local issue at that particular place that the sheriff is speaking. To my knowledge, we've never restricted anyone at the door or caused them to show ID, and I've been to more than a majority of these town hall meetings. But we do encourage the community members of that community to come to the meetings. Now, some of the meetings are held late at night during the week, and like I said, we have varying degrees of size. I've seen full houses, and I've seen somewhat lesser amounts. So it just really depends on the community and what issues they have with us, and are they willing to come there and talk. But again, this is all an effort for the sheriff to connect with his constituents, with the community, find out what's on their mind and how we can do a better job. So that would be my comments on the town hall. I would report to you today, without getting in very specifics, that crime is down across the county. Part 1 crime, we're down at 7%, and we feel that's good news. Our homicides are down nearly 13%, and that's also good news. And it's also good news that our assaults on staff in the jails are down, and our inmate violence is down. So we celebrate that, and we're going to continue to see if we can drive that. But we do caution that stats are stats, but we feel we're moving in the right direction in those regards. You're correct on the Brady issue being referred to county council, and that's where we stand on that right now. As far as the Saugus High shooting event, to give you a little bit of update and perspective on that, I myself responded out there along with quite substantial amount of law enforcement agencies, federal, local, and state. It is an ongoing homicide investigation. You've probably seen press conferences in that regard. What we do know is a student, for unknown reasons right now, shot 5 of his fellow students, killing 2 of them, and then turning the gun on himself. The response from all the agencies was overwhelming. We attribute the great response and the great actions of the school staff to our continued training and active shooter that we're doing all around the county on a continual basis. It recently occurred at that school. So we saw some of that kick into play. We had off-duty deputy, that's a detective at that station, on the scene within seconds because he was there for his child, as well as an off-duty LAPD officer and an off-duty Inglewood officer that all took immediate and appropriate actions to save lives. We also had the school deputy who was only minutes away and already en route for the normal day. We're very proud of what our personnel did in that situation. We worked very, very closely with the fire. We worked with the city officials and the school officials constantly throughout that day and the many press conferences, including the hospital officials, all the way to the vigil Sunday night, which the sheriff and I were in attendance. So we stand with the community, we stand with the school district, and we will be along with them through the healing process. And when we have more investigative information that can be released, then we will in fact release it to the public. So a couple other things that we would like to share with you. We, in regards to SB 1421, or as Mr. Huntsman said, the 832.7, the sheriff has spoken at his town hall meetings and in other forums that it is his intention to comply fully with the law. We're well aware that that we have a lot of requests. So let's walk backward and go down history. About a year ago, this bill was passed, and we had a month to get ready. In that month's time, we also had an election and we changed sheriffs. But even though that was occurring, we still requested additional personnel. To give you an idea, we had one person working our Public Records Act unit, which is sizably smaller than, like, say, LAPD. It's not even close. So in that meantime, January 1st, we got a lot of requests, as one would suspect. And we are now several thousand requests down because we didn't have the personnel, and we acknowledge that. We have gone through and filled some requests under 1421, and to remind you, this is requests that can be done for deputy-involved shooting, sexual misconduct, dishonesty, and Category 3 force. The sheriff looked for solutions. At the same time, you probably know that we're being criticized right now for our overtime expenditures and budget. So we had to look very deep within the organization to find out how to address this issue because it's very important for the sheriff. As a matter of fact, he launched a transparency initiative, and it's his full intention to not only give up this information as it's requested to the requester, but to put this information online so that the whole story can be told. So when somebody requests this information, they'll in fact be able to see what information we actually released. So what do? We have an audit and accountability unit that is part of our accountability process. We looked into that unit, and although the basic core mission under that unit for CCJV will remain intact, and they will be doing performance audits and shooting reviews and stuff like that, we found a contingent of people that we could put to work immediately as a stopgap measure on this SB 1421 request. And that's what we've done. We started training them. So we should see a tide switch here, and we should start seeing those requests being processed. We have very capable supervisors in that unit and professional staff that are more than qualified to handle this issue as we wait to see if our request for personnel will be funded from the board. But we wanted to report to you that we're taking it seriously. We understand the issue, and it's our intent to fully comply. So we've probably put 16 more people on top of the one person that was already there. So it's a sizable investment by the sheriff, and it shows his commitment to try to comply with this as we get additional help from other resources that the county is willing to provide us. The other thing that we're doing is the sheriff is starting, reinstituting, if you will, a civilian advisory committee. It's being chaired by Chief Lawana Hasselrig. And our intention is to have different committees from the community, again, building community relations and trust for the LGBTQ community, the veterans, interfaith, business, cultural, mental health, and the restorative justice portions of this. So what we're doing right now is we're forming it. We're looking for community members that want to be on these groups, and these groups will meet very regularly, and they'll meet also with the sheriff to keep him informed on what the community issues are and better advise him on where we should be going on those issues. So that's another thing that we're doing there. Another thing that we would brief you on is we have a homeless initiative going. I personally am in charge of it. It's obviously a very, very big initiative for the county. We're working with LASA and all the county officials and local groups, the community-based organizations. We're developing a strategic plan right now, and we're looking to talk with the county over some of the Measure H funding. And what we're initially trying to do, as many of you might be familiar with, our homeless outreach services team, which is teams that go around and help the homeless. They're not there to arrest the homeless. And we're trying to expand that team based on Measure H funding. The team's proven, it's recognized by the board of supervisors, and we think that that will be a positive step. Right now, we only have 16 members on that team for a county of 10 million. We're trying to expand that team by another 10 deputies in each supervisory district. So that's one of the other things that we're working on. And I believe that's the issues I wanted to bring to you.
Thank you. Could you list the names of the different advisory committees again?
So tentatively right now we have the LGBTQ, and then we have a veterans part, then we have interfaith for that part, we have business, and then cultural, mental health, and restorative justice.
Thank you.
These are all being formed right now.
Will we be able to, will you brief us on certain recommendations that these, or is this just going to be personal advice to the sheriff, or will we hear about different recommendations that these groups make?
I'm sure we could have Chief Hasselrod come in here and give you a status once we get this going. Again, transparency is what we're trying to do on all issues, so they're not secretive groups. What they are is the community working with us to tell us where we can do better. And so what we're trying to do is gain that relationship with them so that on that particular issue, they can express their concerns, they can work with us, they can help us, and then we can go to the sheriff with recommendations and advice.
Okay, and when they meet, will they be open meetings, or will they be more private?
I don't have that
meetings?
info. We still don't have all the members. We're in the very preliminary phases of putting our personnel on it, so it's developing really as we speak.
Okay, thanks. Questions?
Yes, related to the citizen advisory commissions, if you have 20 people apply to the veterans group, are you going to take all 20? Or how are you going to make the selection process?
I don't have that information right now. We just wanted you to know if you have any input for us, we would take it from you. But right now that we're just developing, so I don't have numbers for you of any type because the civilians that are going to be in the group are not identified right now.
Okay, but so you don't know if there would be any kind of selection process at all.
What I'm here to advise you is that the sheriff is trying to bridge this gap with the community, but I'm not here ready to brief you on the specifics.
I wonder if you could speak about the investigation of an incident in East LA several weeks ago where there was at least according to news reports, there was a family that had contacted the sheriff's department because they were concerned about a relative who had mental instability issues, and at least according to news reports, nobody came, and ultimately there was a confrontation with this individual, and he was killed. So I wondered if you could address where you are on that investigation, and what you can share with us.
Are you talking about the incident at the school last week?
Yes.
It was Torres High School.
Exactly. Yeah, so that is an ongoing homicide investigation, and it will be another example of what the 832.7 will ultimately reveal. But to give you specifics of the investigation right now, I'm not prepared to do that. I can tell you that I responded to that situation with the sheriff himself. He gave a press conference there. It was a very important matter to him. He was personally briefed and aware. Matter of fact, it was the day before the Saugus incident. It had some parallels for us as far as working with multiple agencies and happening on a school campus. We were very concerned about the incident, and I know that the sheriff is very much himself monitoring that situation.
Will you keep us updated on what you can in the future?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
The Civilian Advisory, is it a committee or a commission?
It's advisory committee.
It's a committee. Okay, thank you.
Let me just follow up on that. I'm very intrigued by the sheriff's putting together a civilian advisory committee, particularly as this body is a body of civilians that is to advise the sheriff and make recommendations. I mean, should we all 9 of us volunteer for the sheriff's new civilian advisory committee? And I ask that somewhat facetiously, but I might contemplate that myself if the sheriff would have me.
Well, sir, I would point out that this is an oversight body, and an advisory committee is something that all sheriffs have had. This is really a reinstitution of it, and what we're going to do is we're going to approve it. So it's going to be a 2.0. We're going to make it better than it was.
Thank you. I have a question. Is it true that the Sheriff's Department is not complying with the ordinance that gives our Inspector General access to certain information? I mean, I think that's what we heard today. And as an oversight body, I just wanted to know, does the Sheriff Department have any response to that?
With all due respect to Mr. Huntsman, I don't agree with that, but that's very broad. So I would say if there's an instance that we didn't comply with something, then I would want to know about it, exactly what it is, and then I could respond to it. And we can do that. But I can't tell you, we could go line by line in all the things that I know we're doing. But if there's something that's fallen through the cracks, then I would bring it to the attention of the sheriff. So I think he acknowledged that we're generally doing this. But if there's an instance and we need to do better, then tell us what we didn't comply with and we'll look into it.
That would be my August 12th report on my website, for which we've received no response from the department.
I mean, just to our chair, you know, I'm concerned as an oversight body that the Inspector General for the sheriffs is telling us that the elected sheriff is not complying. And I think what he said is that there was compliance with mundane matters, which to me suggests there's non-compliance with the most important matters. You know, should this body do something, I don't think we should allow that go unremarked.
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to ask is, when will there be a response to the August 12th report from the Inspector General? We are now November, 18th? Do you know when when we can expect a response?
So part of our restructuring of our one unit that I mentioned for our 1421 is to have them help us with responses. This is another part of the department that what we're trying to look at is make sure we respond to everything. So I believe that we have a plan for that, but I don't know whether we've responded to that or not as I sit here. So I can't comment whether we did or not.
Max?
Could I ask that could I make a request that the Sheriff's Department make a response before our next meeting to the IG's August 12, 19 report, in which he is saying that there are things under the ordinance that have not been provided, to which he has not been provided access. So that would be my request. I don't know that it has to be a formal motion, but I think the IG is due a response.
Inspector General, have you gotten any response at all? Like, oh, we're looking into it, we're hiring new people. Hold on, we'll get back to you in 20 minutes. Anything?
No such response of that type. In the case of the hiring process, which is front and center because the board has frozen the sheriff's budget in part in response to overtime, and in fact, the hiring process is the cause of the overtime problem. We were communicated by Captain McBride back in August when he expressed the legal opinion that the HIPAA prevented us from receiving the documents our ordinance provides for. The sheriff has been personally assured that's not the case. Captain McBride has been personally assured, and after the board froze the budget, he spoke to me and indicated that perhaps they would be willing to let us look at things. And nonetheless, that was some months ago, and we still haven't been allowed to see the hiring packets. We were shown some selected by him, a couple examples, heavily redacted. If there weren't parts missing, there were no medical records in them, aside from, as I mentioned, a letter from a doctor saying the person's fit. But no, not the sort of thing that was represented to us that existed in these files, medical records that prevented us from looking at them. And why I believe we've been prevented from looking at them, aside from the general attempt to prevent the OIG from doing its job, is to protect specific things that have been reported in the press about the hiring process and about the sheriff's hiring of the son, about other hiring cases, the Mandoyan case. I'm anxious to see when he forms his advisory committees whether any of them advise that he ought to follow what the judge has ruled in that case and stop his litigation on Mandoyan. But that process, the idea that there's been some kind of response, the only response we've ever gotten is what you just heard, which is, if you'll only tell us what we haven't given you, we'd be happy to work that out. I don't know what more I can do than put it in a public report on a public website and point out the things that are still happening that we're not getting. It's disingenuous for anybody to suggest there's any kind of movement or anything. What there was a slow walk by McBride on this issue, suggesting that perhaps there'd be some change, so that when the last report we get, I put a little footnote in saying, maybe things have changed now, thanks to the boards and their representation, but they haven't. And we have not been given the access we requested, despite communications to the public about transparency or any of those things. But this, I appreciate the commission wanting to address it, and I don't tell you not to, but this is the reason I asked the board to modify my ordinance, why I asked the board to give you subpoena power. And once the ordinance is modified, assuming the board decides to do that, and once your body is given subpoena power, we should discuss what we ought to subpoena.
I would just ask, because it's a little foggy for me, did Captain McBride not send you an email in response to this issue?
He has sent me numerous emails. The August email I referred to, which he said he would go back and check with county council and get back to me on the legal issue. And what I know about the advice county council gave, I did not learn from him. And he did not respond to it until some months later when the board froze the budget. And then I came back to him and said, is there a different position now? And that's when he started representing that maybe there was. But as you, I think, know, the sheriff sent a letter soon after that saying he wanted a second legal opinion. That was briefly before, in the Mandoyan case, he received a second legal opinion from the judge as to whether or not he had an independent right to ignore county council's advice. So there have been lots of communications and emails from Captain McBride, but none of them have been the one I'd like, which is come on over and look at our records as the law allows. That email I have not received.
Again, there's multiple issues being discussed here, so it's easy to cloud this up for you guys. I can tell you that we've referred this issue to County Council as well and to our CPA, and I believe we're at odds on whether those issues can be released as far as our applicant files, and that the applicant files must be released by the applicant. And so there's some dispute here on what's going on. It's not just that we don't want to do it. And to throw in the Mandoyan case is really just something totally different. So I think there's multiple issues here, and I think that when you look at this, we do our best to try to give the information that we can, but sometimes we're in dispute, and that would be normal, and we refer to our attorneys as well to try to find guidance with that. So there's multiple things we're talking about right now.
And as for the Mandoyan case, I highly recommend that the lawyers on this commission, if you haven't read the opinion of the judge issued last month, in which he said very pointedly, the Sheriff Department is not an independent entity from the County of Los Angeles as to hiring, which is precisely the issue here, that they had no legal attorney-client privilege with County Council independent of the counties. I don't know how you could get a better second legal opinion from a judge making it clear that the hiring records of the Sheriff's Department belong to the county.
Could the executive director circulate that at least to the lawyers on the committee? Thanks.
And the non-lawyers might enjoy it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have an important issue to continue to dissect. What I'm interested in, and I think we all are, how do we move off this dime? Is this going to go on for, this is 1 year anniversary of the sheriff's election, and it's a fairly standard operating practice for the inspector generals once they have agreements to be able to see certain things. So maybe what would be helpful to us is, instead of people talking about second opinion, third opinion, maybe you could come back next month and let us know, and bring who may be able to explain it to us, why it's stuck, that there are these two opposing opinions about what the inspector general can see. Because otherwise it's like, it's this. Everybody see that? It's like this. So maybe what we need is, we need the transparency, we need the clarity, we need the explanation about where it is stuck. Why isn't this moving from August? We're now November. Because the Inspector General has to do his job.
We respect the fact that he has to do his job. I think we err on risk management. If we release something that we're not supposed to, then we'll find ourselves being sued, because there's other people that are involved here, and those are personal information, so we want to get it right. So I would just say this is more of a legal dispute, if you will, and I think we're just trying to get it right.
Okay, I'm having a reaction to worrying about being sued, since the Sheriff Department is probably sued more than any other department, as far as I know. Getting it right, we should be able to know what getting it right means. What are the issues? It's a legal dispute. Can someone from the department come here and talk to us and let us know what we hear from the Inspector General, but we're not really hearing from the Sheriff Department what the dispute is about. It seems like there's stonewalling, non-compliance, not opening up the reports to be seen. So I don't think my request is that extraordinary to say, come to us and tell us what the legal disputes are. And I understand if you're not that person who heads that up, maybe you could bring someone or a team of people to explain it to us.
We'll do that. We'll bring someone here. But the issue is simply that, under my understanding, is we don't believe that we can release them. So it's not, stonewalling is a little bit different. That's all I'm saying.
But that's what it's looking like. The truth is, that's what it looks like, and that's what it feels like. I guess I'm making an allegation now.
Yes, you are.
Okay, but we'd like to get underneath that a little bit. So I think it would be helpful
if the sheriff's department explained why they're not complying to the requests from the inspector general, who has statutes and has legal standing to ask for.
We'll do that. Like I said before, I believe it was stated in emails to Mr. Huntsman why they weren't going to be released, but we'll do that.
Without debating it much
Right,
further,
yeah.
let me just suggest we put this on the agenda. We invite the person most knowledgeable from the Sheriff's Department to address the agenda item at our next meeting.
Very good.
And specifically addressing the August 12th letter of Mr. Huntsman.
I'll provide those emails to Mr. Williams and he can distribute them as appropriate.
Right, there was a report on August 12th.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about the emails with Captain McBride. The report is on our website.
It's on the
It's
website,
easy to find. As you heard, before we heard about this legal issue, the Sheriff's Department had no idea what it was we're not getting. And then when we talked about it in specific, then we got a detailed explanation for why legally they can't do it. That report identifies significant areas in which we have not been given documents. In July, I spoke to the board and addressed each of those specific areas. That was a follow-up report to that. Orally pointed out the things that we weren't getting, and the sheriff tweeted that day that facts matter, and Mr. Huntsman knows he has full access to LASD HQ, when in fact, as you're hearing, the Sheriff's Department has not given us full access. I accept that there's a legal argument for why, but the truth is we have not been given access to the things our ordinance provides for, and to suggest publicly otherwise is inaccurate. But that's all contained in August 12th report, the things that we haven't been given, and it hasn't changed.
Okay, so we will agendize this, and we'll be in contact to make sure that you get an official invitation to come and explore this issue here at the December meeting. Okay.
And in that report back, which is basically what's being requested, the more specific your department can get as to why you're not complying, I think would make a great deal of sense. So what I'm saying is, if somebody comes back in December and says, well, we have a legal opinion that says no, that isn't going to cut it. We need something more specific. If your department believes it's on good legal ground, then you ought to be able to explain that.
I understand, ma'am, and you understand I'm not an attorney, so I'm not
I know.
trying to dive
Right.
into the legal part of this. I'm
Right.
trying to give you just the most generic
I understand.
answer.
No, we understand, and we're asking for you to invite the non-generic people to come and explain it to us. That'd be great. Okay? Any other questions? So now we're going to move to public comment.
We have 7 speakers. Michelle Infante, followed by Reggie Bunch, followed by Dakota Witt.
Again, I'm going to push oversight for the LA County Coroner's Office, and I think it's pretty pathetic that the Sheriff's Department has come here and doesn't have any answers with regards to the questions that are being asked by the Commission. It's insulting, your answers that are not even there. I'm just going to say right now, thank you to the Commission for this year. Everything that you've done has been greatly appreciated by our organization and also by the families and the community members. So thank you very much for the work that every one of you has done. We appreciate it.
Reggie Bunch, followed by Dakota Witt, followed by Paula Miner.
Reggie's gone.
Dakota Witt.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for your tremendous work in holding the Sheriff's Department accountable and providing oversight. As you can see, there is immense pain in the communities that this department is serving. I was at the Temple City Town Hall, and I saw firsthand the intimidation tactics that the department was using, not only on the families, the Rhea family, which was not even allowed in at first, I don't know if there was IDs being checked, but there was definitely children, small children with signs about their slain family member pressing their faces against the glass, asking to come in and just be part of a town hall. Deputies were taking photos of these young children. And when asked to stop, the situation escalated. And who was being protected? The woman who was taking pictures of the young children, not the family, not the people who were in charge of those young children. It was the person who was empowered and emboldened by the sheriff's department, protected even, and then escalated. And then, you know what? That night, the mother of that child, she was in custody. That was immediately after Temple City. These families were facing an altercation with the department, and we know it's not a coincidence. The harassment is real. I've seen it with my eyes. These families need to heal and move on with their lives, and this city and county should be in support of that, not in opposition. The way that this department even interacts with these families at this point, knowing what has happened, is deplorable. It turns my stomach. So please, I just ask all of you to dig in and to believe these families. They wouldn't be here otherwise. Do you think that these families want to take time out of their day and sit here in this room with no snacks and no coffee to be re-traumatized and be scrutinized? No. They're here because they mean it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Paula Miner, followed by Suzette Shaw, followed by Ernest Moore.
Greetings and good day. My name is Suzette Shaw. I am a Skid Row resident, advocate. I write, talk, and I advocate Skid Row from a woman's perspective. I was pleased to say that I was at the community forum at St. Anne's on Saturday, and I enjoyed myself. There's a lot to be learned, and there's a lot for you all to learn. And with that said, I ask that you invite us as Skid Row residents to the table, just so that you understand. Prior to my displacement from Skid Row, I was co-chair, and executive director of Restorative Justice program in my hometown of Arizona. I also am a former hiring manager. I recruited and hired thousands, large companies, small companies, where I also ran my own business in Silicon Valley, hiring people with lived experience in the 90s. I also am a former job developer with the state of Arizona TANF welfare program, where I led a tri-weekly jobs class and work with employers to bring employment into our community. Currently, I sit on the Black People Experiencing Homelessness Ad Hoc Committee with LA County. I also am part of the Database Advisory Board, recently formed. And I also sit on LASA's Continuum of Care Board, LASA and HECLA's Continuum of Care Board for LASA. That's where the HUD dollars flow into Los Angeles. That's just a few things that I'm involved with, as far as domestic violence and other coalitions as well. So anyway, I just wanted to give you a little bit of my background and my perspective on what I bring to the table as someone who could offer a depth of information and an array of bringing context and adding value to the conversation. I do feel that we should be part of the table and invited to the table. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ernest Moore, followed by Tramel Carter. Tramel Carter.
Hello, before I begin, I gave the chairman a copy of 2 documents to give out to members of the board prior to me coming, so they just can have an idea what I was referring to. But I can begin now. I don't know if they have the copy. Do I start now? I'm here now because I continuously keep being harassed by LA Sheriff Department because I filed complaints against them some time ago. Most recently, I went to get housing, and I was denied housing at a loft on 11th and Flower because a deputy by the name of Allison Melendez said I assaulted her. I've never seen this person before in my life. The LA sheriff deputy said that they arrested me 3 times before and that they had my photos and that's how they gave it to her and she picked me out. I was on a wardrobe tour in Miami. I have plane tickets and documents to show. The case was dismissed against me, but what's very strange is the person they arrested that day is 50 years old. He weighs 160 pounds and he's 5'10". But my name is listed, but it's all someone else's description. So for the last 4 years, this has been under my name. I've been denied jobs. I've been denied so many things. And every time I ask about these things, a strange unit comes by and another person, a gang-affiliated person, told me that they're called Benzitos or Benditos. I don't know the exact name, but they throw up these gang signs. Every time I ask about this, why my name is on here, cases get filed against me for ignoring telephone calls. I'm told I need to be quiet. I never did this. The person who was arrested on that day, it says the case was closed out by arrest in 2016. But in 2018, I wasn't given keys to a loft because it was an open warrant for assault. The judge dismissed the case in October of 2018. But every time I ask about this, the sheriff department tell me that I better be quiet, that things happen to people, and the more I ask about it, that more things are gonna happen to me. I don't know who this person is. There's fingerprints that can show it's not me, and I don't have housing because they have stuff under my name, and it's like affecting my life. I keep telling people and no one's doing anything about it.
Thank you. Staff, will you be able to speak with him? Someone, we have another speaker?
No.
Oh, that was
the
final speaker.
Final speaker.
Okay, we did it. We ended a little bit early today. Yeah, so,
Starla, can we put up where our next meeting will not be held here, as is generally our course of conduct. We try and hold the meeting at a different location during December. We use that as a time to sort of organize ourselves and to visit a different part of town. Our next meeting, December 17th, will be held at the Newhall Library Community Room in Santa Clarita. We'll have that information up on our website and shoot it out to everyone in our database.
okay. Thanks, everyone. Our meeting is adjourned. Safe travels for the rest of the day. And happy holidays. That's right. Oh. Yeah.